Congratulate yourself, because you've just made the best decision you're likely to make all day. You've tuned into the voice of reason with Tugboat Calhoun. Tugboat answers your questions and brings you the news that you need to know, because Tugboat knows better than you. And now, here's Tugboat.
Toot toot. Tugboat Calhoun here, towing another load of pants-free podcasting into port by daybreak. Hey Tuggernauts, that's right, here I am in the flesh and some bones. Tugboat Calhoun with your monthly installment of this weekly broadcast. So there you are in your car, at your office, at your government job, wondering, hey Tugboat, where have you been? Well, I've been right here, however I've been under the weather, as they say in these parts and other parts, to my understanding. Here's the deal. I couldn't come on air sounding the way I sounded because I had a case of frog lips fever. Yes, that's right, frog lips fever. It's a real public health emergency. We recently had some rain here in FEMA Region 7, and as I was scouting the backyard for earthworms and other bait non-vertebrae, I came across a frog. Not just any frog, a grand bullfrog. And I thought, hey, maybe if I kiss it, it'll become a prince. So I commenced kissing the frog. It spat at me, and then I came down with a very dangerous and life-threatening case of frog lips fever. My voice has recovered mostly, and here I am back at the helm of my very own tugboat. That is, not sexual. Not yet, anyway. So, as usual, I've got a backlog. Also, not sexual. A backlog of questions and, of course, stories that I've decided you need to know. Oh, and I may sound a little differently than usual. The studio sank about $80 into some professional podcasting equipment, so we have a cooling device for the podcasting machine, and I've got a fancy boom microphone system here with a pop filter, so I can say P's and F's and S's without having to edit the crap out of it. And also, I don't think it's picking up every breath that I take, both in and exhalations. Okay, maybe if I am blatant about it, but if I'm coy and sly, perhaps I can get away without having to edit every breath that I take. So, here we go with our very first segment. Dun 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 dun.
Now, it's time for our first segment, Voice of the Heroes. Here on The Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
Our hero of the week is a 69-year-old Indiana woman named Jackie Van Tile. And the reason Ms. Van Tile is our hero of the week is because she is featured here at the smokinggun.com in an article titled, Indiana Woman, 69, stockpiled her urine so she could dump it on her neighbor's home. For months, the 69-year-old Indiana woman urinated in a bucket so that she could throw the waste on the home of her next-door neighbor, whom she disliked, says a police report. Jackie Van Tile was charged Monday with a pair of misdemeanor criminal mischief counts for the alleged urine attack on the property in Lynn, a town about 80 miles east of Indianapolis. According to court records, victim Joseph Basler, who is not our victim of the week, contacted police 2 months ago to report suspicions that Van Tile had been dousing his home's exterior with urine. A patrolman noted that a very strong odor of urine hit me upon arriving at Basler's residence. Additionally, Officer Travis Jones noted damaged siding made it obvious something was thrown on the house. As first reported by the Star Press's Douglas Walker, in a bid to capture the urine tosser in the act, Basler installed a hidden camera that eventually recorded Van Tile twice throwing a liquid on his house. When confronted by police, Van Tile initially denied dousing her neighbor's home, but subsequently copped to the vandalism, police say. Van Tile admitted that for several months she had been urinating in a blue bucket. When Basler would leave his house, she would toss the waste on his home. As for why she went to such extremes, Van Tile told cops, "I don't like him. He's a bad neighbor." During the October police interview, Jackie also advised she had been doing this all summer, according to a Lynn Police Department report. When told by a cop that she could be jailed for the urine tossing, Van Tuyl stated to the effect that she thought it was just a nuisance. Van Tuyl is scheduled for a 12 January appearance at the Randolph County Superior Court. So there you are, in your home, at your desk, at your government job, wondering why Ms. Van Tuyl, the accused or alleged urine tosser, is our hero of the week. Well, twofold. One, for her stick-to-itiveness. She didn't commit the act once, twice, or thrice, but more than thrice, or thrice plus. And all this despite police involvement. So you really have to be committed if you're going to continue doing something after being warned by the police not to. Second, her command of the law, as she probably just thought it to be, or somebody in her neighborhood told her that, well, you can't be charged with this because it's just a nuisance, it's not an actual crime. Despite what the laws actually are, interpreting them yourself and acting upon them is something that is uniquely American. And third, the frugality of the effect. She used the same bucket over and over again, and it didn't cost her a thing to get this vengeance on her bad neighbor. It eventually landed her in the court system, and much like myself, she could be deemed a justice-involved adult, although she was charged with misdemeanors, not felony. That's the plural of a felony for the uninitiated amongst us. So for all of those reasons, Miss Van Tuyl is our hero of the week. And since this is the sole broadcast in the merry month of December, I guess that makes her the hero of the month, which puts her in the running for hero of the year. Although, if somebody could give me some useful advice on training my dog Javaho to not poop in the house, I would consider making them the hero of the year. I've gotten plenty of advice, none of it has worked. I still have to clean up poops in the office 2 to 3 times daily. There are moles in political campaigns, as we've recently seen a major political party accused of putting a mole into a candidate's campaign in order to break the law and thusly get the candidate in trouble. But I believe the McAbernathys, or another one of the clans engaged in a feud with the Calhouns, of which I am a member, possibly inserted Javaho into the Calhoun compound in order to ruin the carpet. Or perhaps they have a stake in Lysol, which the stock surely must be going up with the amount of it that I'm using to cover up what Javaho has been doing on the carpet. Anyway, I'm not the victim of the week. The victim of the week is a 30-year-old cereal-eating woman from Ohio. And the story at thesmokinggun.com reads as follows. Motorist eating a bowl of cereal leads Ohio police on a 30-mile high-speed chase. A motorist who was spotted eating cereal as she drove along an Ohio interstate led police on a 30-mile chase that ended with her arrest on multiple criminal charges. According to investigators, Paula Johannesson was spotted driving erratically around 2:30 a.m. Tuesday on Interstate 70 outside of Columbus. After pulling over Johansson's car, a Madison County Sheriff's Office deputy noticed that the 42-year-old was eating a bowl of cereal as she was driving. After Sergeant Tim Weinbrenner told Johannesson that she was stopped for weaving across the road, she stated that she had been eating her cereal and didn't mean to go over the lines, according to a criminal complaint. During the traffic stop, Johannesson sped away from the cop, prompting a high-speed chase that moved into a neighboring county. At times over 100 miles per hour, Johannesson ran over stop sticks that cops deployed to deflate her tires. After her shredded left tire came off the car, Johannesson continued to drive on the rim. But when the vehicle lost its transmission and became disabled, Johannesson bolted from the auto and was quickly apprehended by pursuing officers. Johannesson was charged with fleeing or eluding police, a felony, or justice involvement. I did air quotes, you couldn't see them though. And obstructing justice, a misdemeanor. She is also facing raps for reckless driving and driving with a suspended license. Investigators have not identified Johannesson's preferred brand of cereal. Well, I'm certainly no police investigator, although I did see on the internet that I could take a 1-year course and make $56,000 per year doing so. I would say that the case was probably going to be thrown out if they can't identify the cereal she was eating that prompted the stop. Anyway, Johannesson is our victim of the week because all she was doing was getting 2 birds stoned at the same time. Sometimes you have to drive, and sometimes you have to eat breakfast. Why can't you do both at the same time? I know that a bowl of cereal versus a cereal bar or a 2:30 a.m. cheeseburger requires 2 hands to eat versus the 1, but as an American, I'm sure she's astute in the art of driving with her knees. And she had the good sense to undergo such a dangerous activity at 2:30 in the morning when very few people are actually on the road. So, for engaging in the all-American act of multitasking, Miss Johannesson is being persecuted and is our victim of the week.
Good news, comrades! Now is the time for your favorite segment, Voice of the Proletariat. Here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
Forgive me, Tuggernauts, if I don't go into excruciating detail in answering these questions, as I have an entire month's worth built up. In your question, which is being asked a few times, hey Tugboat, are you doing a Christmas special? I'm sorry if the C word offends you. That's the only time I'll use it, I promise. However, I just bumped the pop screen. I don't think that it filters out bumps like it filters out P's and F's and S's. Man, this is a high-class operation that's going on here. I almost feel like I don't belong here. There's so much fancy stuff in here. But if I did a show, or a multicolored light and garland tree holiday program, then I would have to do a program for every holiday out there. And if you Google what is special about each and every day, other than the fact that you woke up and there's an invisible gas that you can breathe that makes you live, and that hydrogen and oxygen form water and falls from the sky, and that trees breathe out the gas that you need to breathe in, that the human ear can hear things, that the electrical current going through your body makes your heart beat, and flowers and dogs, and all the other wonders of the world, the things that would make each day special, according to the Google, is that it's always something. It's Pet Appreciation Day, it's Administrative Assistant Appreciation Day, it's Leif Erikson Day, Gnome Fact Day, Hippopotamus Appreciation Day. Every day has some sort of meaning on the Google. So that means that every time there is some sort of special event, which is every day, I would have to do a show dedicated to that, because you can't pick and choose which holidays to celebrate in a free and open society. You have to celebrate them all, or none. I choose none. Mostly because I'm lazy. But that's my right. So now, I will answer the first of the many questions that I have, and I do aim to get to them all. However, I may get tired, because in this new studio I have to stand up, and I've got the headphones on, and it looks really cool. But just think, I have a size 7 foot, and that's adult. I have an adult size 7 foot. I weigh in at approximately 110 kilos. So the amount of pressure per square inch or square centimeter on each centimeter of my foot is excruciating. And much like Kim Jong-un, I have swollen ankles, and it's not because I'm pregnant. Trust me, I've checked. So that's going to limit the time I can actually perform in this capacity. And also, Javaho is taking a nap now, but soon she will start biting her squeaky toy, which she got in conjunction with a multicolored light garland ceramic ball decorated tree holiday, which may or may not have recently happened. Alright, so are you ready for the first question now? I feel like I've had to prepare you more than is necessary, so I'm just going to get right to it because you're taking too much time. Okay, the first question is from Ian, and Ian would like to know, Tugboat, if no mummies or treasure were ever, he has asterisk I around the word ever, if no mummies or treasure were ever taken out of the Great Three Pyramids, ellipses, parentheses, and that's true, ellipses, then what do you think was their true, capitalized, purpose? Well, Ian, they were clearly built by the Anunnaki, who seeded the human race over 400,000 years ago and also created Bigfoots to guard gold mines. They were created to channel energy to the Anunnaki spacecraft that helps them to get home. And that's true. Thank you for the question. Kayak Fun, probably not a given name, it's probably some sort of synonym or anagram or something, but Kayak Fun wants to know, Tugboat, how come waterbeds became so unpopular? Well, Kayak Fun, what lives in the water? That's right, sharks, Portuguese men of war, stingrays, which killed Steve Irwin, lots and lots of terrible, awful creatures. And with the uptick in shark attacks these past few years, it entirely makes sense that no one would want to sleep on a bed full of water where sharks live. However, because of their unpopularity, you could probably get them at a cut-rate price these days. Thank you for the question. And it's ideas like that from the highly educated man before you who has taken Econ 101 on the internet that you tune into this program, as over 52,000 other Tuggernauts around the Tugger Earth have done in the last 2 years. Susanna, with an extra N and extraneous H, wants to know, Tugboat, me and my family are currently in the process of buying a new TV for our family room. We are looking in the range of 55. Is 55 too small? I don't know how big your living room is, Susanna, but do you really need 55 televisions? Would just 3 or 4 suffice? I don't think that you need 55 televisions. That's just me, though. And I'm not advocating for any sort of political doctrine or political candidate when I say something along the lines of, you don't need as many things as you have. It's your right to have as many things as you want, but it's also my right to complain about it and demand that you give some to me. So if you really need 55 televisions, I guess that's a good range, but I'm thinking 4 maximum. I mean, how many things can you actually pay attention to, or how many people are in the living room with you? I suppose if you have 55 people in your family, 55 TVs in the living room would make sense. That way everybody can watch what they like. However, with the declining fertility rate because of the chemtrails and the high fructose corn syrup and the fluoride in the water and all that, I can't imagine people having 53 children, not in 2015 anyway. So the range of 55 is a bit extraneous, I believe. However, it's still a free country. Thank you for the question. The next question is from Shauna, and Shauna wants to know, Tugboat, my dog ate tampons. Should I be worried? Tampons, as in more than one. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd be worried. But you didn't ask if I should be worried, you asked if you should be worried. So the short answer to your question is yes, you should be worried. Tampons, as I understand them after doing a quick Google search, I'm not advocating the use of a specific search engine, as none of them actually advertise on this program. Not yet, anyway. Hint, hint. It's not a hint to the Tuggernauts, it's a hint to search engines that I can mention using them on the program, which is heard by over 218 people every day. And from advertising here, they will get more advertising revenue when Tuggernauts go to their search engine. There's more of that Econ 101 coming out. Back to you, Shauna. Yes, you should be worried. Your dog ate tampons, and as I understand it, the tampons absorb liquid and will potentially cause a blockage in your dog's intestinal system, so you should probably get that checked out by a licensed veterinary technician. Next, Charlie T wants to know, Tugboat, Americans are originally German, ? Am I right? ? Sometimes, Charlie T. If your surname is Spätzle or Spargel, there's a good chance that your ancestors came from Germany. The English, who were among the first settlers, of course, there were also Dutch and Swedes who settled in what is today the United States of America around that same time. The English are mostly Anglo-Saxons, which came from what is today Germany and Denmark. But you also have Calhouns in the United States, and the Calhouns originally came from Scotland, which is not part of England and is not a Germanic bloodline. It is a Celtic bloodline. Then you also have the Martinezes and the Cannolis and the Caravellas and the Molinskis and all sorts of other names that aren't Germanic. Now, the Swedes and the Dutch, who I mentioned first, settled the United States along with the English, are all Germanic peoples. So the answer to your question is sometimes. Sometimes Americans are originally German, and sometimes they're originally something else. So thank you for the question. TB, which I hope does not mean tuberculosis because I've not been vaccinated, would like to know, Tugboat, oh, hey, TB, Tugboat. I didn't ask myself this question though, so this is not a plant. This is just somebody who identified themselves as TB. Anyway, TB wants to know, I saw a man basically drop his dog off on my front porch and leave it there. Now the dog is staying on my porch, ? Well, TB, are you asking me if the dog is staying on your front porch? Sounds like you're telling me that the dog is staying on your front porch, and you're asking me perhaps what to do about it, or if the dog is now yours, what I would say to you is possession is 9/10 of the law. If you're driving around and you're pulled over and there is a crack pipe or a methamphetamine pipe or an open beer bottle in your car in plain view of a police officer, it belongs to you and you'll be charged thusly with possession. So if anyone, police officer or not, were to show up to your house and there was a dog on your front porch, well, you're now in possession of the dog, so make sure you check the dog thoroughly for drug paraphernalia, and if he's clean, then I guess you can keep him. Thank you for the question. Lex wants to know, Tugboat, is it rude to ask my manager what gender her fiancé is? Yeah. Yep, that would be rude. You can ask what her fiancé's name is, and then make an inference based on that. But also, realistically, what business is it of yours anyway? And I know one thing about managers. You can be unceremoniously transferred if you do an impression of them, no matter how accurate the impression is. So how much more hot water could you get into for delving into their personal life in that manner? So Lex, mind your P's and Q's, and maybe go get a fiancé of your own. Jealous. Thank you for the question. Kendrick wants to know, Tugboat, is it a shock to learn that Peyton Manning used steroids? Ooh, Kendrick, I don't know that I'm comfortable with you making that accusation here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun. It has been alleged in a foreign propaganda newspaper called Al Jazeera that Peyton Manning used HGH, which is a hormone, not a steroid. So, fact check number 1. I think the more important question in this matter is, why is Tom Brady framing Peyton Manning? Have you thought about that? You didn't. Okay, well, think about that and get back to me. Thank you for the question. Georgia wants to know, Tugboat, is Santa Claus a liberal or a conservative? Okay, Georgina, the thing about Santa Claus is he doesn't live in the United States. He lives at the North Pole. The North Pole, like many other major democracies in the world, doesn't have a two-party system like the United States. However, there is the general of liberal and conservative. And you asked about the general outlook of his politics versus an actual political party, so I'll give you that. However, I think what's more important to address that Santa Claus is one of the leading figures in human trafficking in the 21st century. He has a slave army of elves, and I also don't think that he treats the reindeer that nicely. I saw a documentary recently about a reindeer with a red nose that was ostracized in the reindeer microclimate or microculture that is on the Santa Claus plantation. So regardless of the political outlook of the man, why is he not the number one fugitive from justice according to Interpol right now? Yearly, he travels to every country in the world looking for good boys and girls, and while he's lauded for these efforts, I think the dark secret of Santa Claus having slaves manufacturing toys, that's the only reason he can give them out for free. Have you thought of that? Have you thought of that? Some companies have slave labor and then charge you $600 for their product. Santa Claus has slave labor and gives you the products for free. And every year he travels to each and every country. Most countries have agreements with Interpol, which is the worldwide policing system. And I believe that he stays in the North Pole because they don't have an extradition treaty with the United Nations or with the leading nation of the United Nations, the United States. But here I am, Tugboat Calhoun, a public figure calling for the arrest of Santa Claus and his extradition for human trafficking violations. It's beyond left and right. It's right and wrong. And in this instance, Santa Claus is wrong. Thank you for the question, Georgia. Lindsay wants to know, Tugboat, how do you mentally and physically prepare to get back to work after the holidays? Well, you can do both by doing just one thing, and it's called the power stance. If you stand with your clenched fists raised as far above your head as you can get them, and if you lean to the left, raising the right heel off the ground and keeping the left heel and ball of your left foot on the ground, and stay that way for a minimum of 2 minutes, you'll be completely rejuvenated. Thank you for the question. Tony wants to know, Tugboat, is lemon fruit or vegetable? Well, Tony, it's a citrus. A citrus. Thank you for the question, Tony. Edwina, likely a Tugger Brit, would like to know, Tugboat, why are men afraid of commitment and showing emotion? Well, Edwina, men commit to a lot of things. We commit crimes. We commit atrocities. We also commit to doing lots and lots of push-ups. But in the latter case, commitment, things can be really hard to do. That's why committing to them can be so difficult. And with the showing emotion, it's because we will likely be blackmailed for showing emotion. For example, hey Tugboat, remember that time you cried about XYZ? Hey Tugboat, remember last week when you were crying about this? And if you're saying, hey Tugboat, crying is not the only way to show emotion, well, that's where you're wrong. So the answer to your two questions are, number one, commitment's really hard, and two, showing emotion will eventually lead to you being embarrassed, perhaps publicly. And that's why you should never do it. Thank you for the question. Brett wants to know, Tugboat, what's your reaction to Atlanta Falcons upsetting Carolina Panthers and ending their streak? Well, upsetting, I suppose. My reaction is being upset. However, I will not show any emotion regarding that issue. Thank you for the question. Now, Clark would like to know, Tugboat, how do atheists refute Nobel Prize-winning chemist-physicist Ilya Prigogine? Ilya Prigogine, who says, the statistical probability that organic structures and the most precisely harmonized reactions that typify living organisms would be generated by accident is 0. Well, Clark, consider that from 1901 until 2015, 22% of Nobel Prize winners are Jewish. Therefore, the likely reason behind any refutation or criticism of a Nobel Prize winner is anti-Semitism. Thank you for the question. George would like to know, Tugboat, does a college degree guarantee a job? ? Yes or no? ? Well, George, kind of. I have a dual degree in archaeology and Western Slavic folk dancing, and here I am working as a podcast host. So, yeah, you're guaranteed a job with a college degree. The likelihood of it being in your chosen field is negligible. In the words of the character played by Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. Thank you for the question. Now Alex wants to know, Tugboat, do you think teenagers should be allowed to continue a teenager life, in quotations, after having a child? By teenager life, again, in quotations, I mean going out to parties, hanging out with friends very frequently, having alone time, dating, etc. This applies to both the mother and the father. Well, of course, Alex. I mean, it's not your fault that you had a baby. Of course, people will say that you made a very adult decision by doing sex. But you can't be blamed for having the child, so of course someone else should bear the burden of caring for the child while you continue dating, have your alone time, and hang out with friends very frequently. This is illustrated by the MTV program Teen Mom, where teenage girls have babies, men come in and out of their lives, and the mothers of the teen mothers, or the young grandmothers, are the primary parental units. So there's your justification, Alex. You do you. YOLO. Thank you for the question. Kelly wants to know, Tugboat, is my brother's wedding the perfect time to announce my pregnancy? Totally, Kelly. You can't let your brother have all of the glory on that one day. There's no way that he should be allowed that. What better way to sabotage that SOB than to steal the attention on his special day for yourself, announcing that you're pregnant? Why should he be allowed a celebration by himself? I think it's only right that he shares most of the attention on that day with you. As a matter of fact, I think that before the wedding is when you should announce it. Or perhaps when the clergyman asks for any objections, that's when you should stand up to announce your pregnancy. So there you have it, and thank you for the question, Kelly. Kayla wants to know, Tugboat, I got a shock collar for my dog. He is with me at all times. I used it one time and he shivers when I come near him. He won't even take treats from me. What do I do? An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. Fight fire with fire, and shock for a shock. What you need to do is put the collar on yourself and let the dog shock you. Then you'll be even, and then you can give him treats. Thank you for the question. And our last question is from Liz, and Liz wants to know, Tugboat, Who pays for the wedding gown if the bride and family can't pay for the expensive dress? Hopefully, not the groom. There has to be some sort of government agency or non-governmental organization, or NGO, that supplies wedding dresses, because if the bride's family doesn't pay for it, and the groom doesn't pay for it, then who's left to pay for it? That's where we need the government to step in and supply a wedding dress. I believe that it's I'd have to check it. It's been a long time since I took Constitution 101 on the internet, which is a free course provided by Hillsdale College. But I believe it's one of the amendments, or it's in the Bill of Rights, or it's in there somewhere, that everyone is entitled to 3 free wedding dresses throughout the course of their life. Freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and free wedding dresses. I think that's even the Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation. It's Federalist Paper number 56. It's got to be in there somewhere. I mean, I'll have to get my fact checkers on it, but yeah, clearly this is a place for the government to step in. Best of luck on your wedding day, and if your sister's pregnant, just give her some time to announce her pregnancy during your special day with your free wedding dress. Okay, Tuggernauts, if you have a question for me to answer on the next program, you can email those questions to me at toot@tugboatcalhoun.com or tugboat.calhoun.com. Tugboat.calhoun@yahoo.com. You can get on the Twitter and tweet at Tugboat Calhoun. You can tweet me your question. You can get on Facebook, where I have over 8,800 likes, and Facebook me your question. You can put it on the wall. I may overlook it if it's on the wall, because sometimes it gets a little busy, but you're better off Facebook messaging the question to me if you don't email it to me. And now, we will transition, even though it's a very mechanical transition since I'm talking about the transition in the transition, but nonetheless we will transition to our next segment.
Unfortunately, coming up, we have your least favorite segment, Voice of Vermont, here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
Look, Tuggernauts, I get a lot of hate mail, and you can just do us both the favor and refrain from writing in hate mail complaining about this next segment, which is a contractual obligation for me to conduct. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't, believe you me. However, I must, so I shall. Vermont game wardens take on poachers with robotic decoys. This as written at WCAX.com by Alex Apple. Clearly a pen name, as no one would actually be named that. And Alex Apple writes, there were 3 Vermonters accused of poaching deer recently, and game wardens say they caught the men using an old but updated decoy sting. Prostitute deer. Sorry, getting stories confused here. The woods will soon be home for deer hunters. An honest hunter might wait hours and never see a deer. A fair chase is part of the thrill.
See, Dad, you're still paying your Netflix.
I'm still playing my Netflix?
Paying?
Yeah, you can use Netflix.
You still have Netflix?
Yeah.
Yay! I'll watch a movie.
Congratulations.
I'll watch a movie! See, Dad, it's only $7 now. It became cheaper.
I don't think so. I think it's like 9.
Uh,
I don't even think road hunters like themselves, said Dustin Snyder, game warden. That's what makes poaching, or a drive-by road hunter, so frustrating for sportsmen. Snyder showed a deer that was shot with a crossbow, a deer that was fake. We just put them somewhere close to the road where people can see them. A road hunter might be looking for a deer, said Snyder. Vermont's Fish and Wildlife game wardens have made a string of recent poaching arrests using an old trick, deer facsimiles. Now they, the deer, move remotely to trick a hunter with even the sharpest eye for a decoy. Nearby game wardens are hidden ready to catch an unsuspecting poacher. Find a place of concealment and just tuck in. Hide for the night, said Snyder. The game's on. We'll come out of the woodwork. We have a high success rate this year. It's in the media, all our decoy success. In 2014, there were 433 cases involving illegal hunting activity. 95 deer were taken illegally. The goal is to cut down on that number this year. We get reports year after year in certain areas where we know there is road hunting or spotting or poaching, said Snyder. With regular sting operations in strategic areas, wardens believe they're reducing illegal hunting. They take manpower hours. You could sit on a decoy from the hours of midnight till 6 in the morning and never have a car go by, said Snyder. Well, with the gas taxes in Vermont, makes driving prohibitive. The article concludes by saying, it takes at least 2 wardens to pull off a sting operation, and it's time-consuming. The goal is to make the woods as safe as possible once the season starts, and leave a healthy deer population for honest hunters. Well, with the high taxation and lackadaisical economic activity in the Green Mountain State, it's very likely that people are using the very little amount of fuel that they can afford to drive around and scare up some deer just so they can have a good stew. And those taxes are high because you have to pay for lots of game wardens to sit around looking at deer robots. Robotic deer in areas that aren't traveled from midnight till 6. So good job, Vermont. Hopefully we can get that number of illegally taken deer down from the sky-high 95. If you've ever been to the Green Mountain State, you have my sympathy, but you know that the deer are plentiful and generally in roadways, which is where I guess you could run into a decoy deer as well as a real deer. And this story is anticlimactic like most things involving Vermont. Lebanon man accused of shooting neighbor's toilet. Lebanon is not even in Vermont. So there's so little going on in the Green Mountain State that they have to report on news from other states. WCAXnews.com reports a Lebanon man was arrested after police say he shot his neighbor's toilet. Police say 48-year-old Andrew Griffon fired the gun from his Parkhurst Street apartment Thursday night, and that the bullet, traveled through the wall, striking the toilet and causing the water break. No one was home in the unit at the time. Griffon is facing multiple charges. Important political news at the HuffingtonPost.com from Vermont. This story, uncredited. The Vermont House has passed a resolution thanking one of its members for the peanut M&Ms. Representative Ken Atkins, a Winooski Democrat, has carried on the tradition since 1999, in which every time there's a pause in legislative action for a House roll call, he dumps a bunch of M&Ms into a glass jar on his desk and other House members gather around for a snack. The retired teacher says he likes a snack during the House action, and he used to tell his students not to bring a snack to class without enough to share. Atkins said he tried putting out plain M&Ms with the peanut ones once, but no one took the plain ones. So this is going through the Vermont House of Representatives, a measure to thank someone for bringing peanut M&Ms, probably a highly coveted capitalistic good smuggled in from outside the state. I also wonder if this was a partisan issue. Did not talk about who voted for or against, so I wonder if this was a down-the-line 98 Democrats for the measure and the lone Republican against. But, Vermonters, this is what your elected representatives do with their time. Thank people for M&Ms. Lastly, more Vermont news from outside the state, as there's not enough going on in the Vermont Congress, apparently. And the Vermont News, WCAX.com, reports from Plattsburgh, New York, Plattsburgh residents reminded to shovel sidewalks. A reminder for Plattsburgh residents to get out and shovel their sidewalks to avoid paying for it. The first storm of the season left a few inches of icy snow on the ground. The city does not clear sidewalks, requiring residents to clear the patches in front of their properties. And in October, the city upgraded the penalties. Sidewalks not shoveled within 24 hours of a storm will be cleared by the city, and the bill will be sent to the property owner. There is not a little old lady provision, so the city of Plattsburgh will be finding little old ladies who don't shovel their sidewalks. It's amazing that this is not happening in Vermont. It sounds like a very Vermont thing to do. Finding old ladies.
Forget the dinosaur media. Tugboat will tell you everything that you need to know in this next segment. Voice of Tugger Earth. Here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
An uncredited article at menshealth.com reports the following. This guy lost 47 pounds in 9 months by pretending to be a wizard. Well, I've been doing it all wrong. All these years I've been pretending to be a podcast host, and I haven't lost any weight. Mel is a 45-year-old marketing manager for a comic book company in Los Angeles, and a self-proclaimed nerd, which is in quotations. And you never would have guessed that a 45-year-old man working at a comic book company would subscribe to that sort of social moniker. Until recently, he'd never been able to stay on a workout regimen for very long. 9 months ago, he weighed 320 lbs, or pounds, and by his own admission was lethargic and slow. I would lose my breath just walking up a flight of stairs on the subway. But all that changed this year. Today, he says he's 273 pounds and losing more weight every week. How did he do it? He started doing workouts inspired by one of his passions, the Lord of the Rings. The workout is called the Eye of Sauron, and it was created by Andrew Deutsch, the head coach and owner of Nerd Strong Gym in North Hollywood, California. Deutsch started Nerd Strong in his garage in 2003 when he became the personal fitness trainer for the Dungeon Master at his Dungeons & Dragons group. Well, California Dungeon Master, I thought this was going to take a different turn, however, it's about weight loss. Since then, he's created new workouts designed to appeal to people more interested in Doctor Who and Star Wars than kettlebells. My one encounter with kettlebells resulted in me farting very loudly and ripping my pants all at the same time. Anyway, it's enough about my kettlebells. Let's go back to the Eye of Sauron. What's involved in the Eye of Sauron workout? It goes like this. In The Lord of the Rings, the bad guy is represented by a giant eye, the Eye of Sauron. And the eye has a beam that sweeps light across the land, and the characters have to get down to avoid being seen by it, Deutsch said. So in the workout, every 3 minutes, the Eye of Sauron... So in the workout, every 3 minutes, the Eye of Sauron sweeps across the gym and everyone has to hold a plank position for a minute until it passes. The ring has a heavy burden to it, so we have them carry a weight around the entire workout to represent that. It's not really the workout that's exceptional. What's exceptional is how it has enticed fitness-averse guys like Mel to return to the gym week after week, and as a result, they're getting serious results. Mel said that prior to discovering Nerd Strong, he never felt comfortable at other gyms. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I felt like an outsider, he claims. The worst part was to be using an exercise machine and feeling like I'm not using it properly, and other people watching, judging, and laughing at me. Anyone who regularly goes to a gym will probably wince at that explanation. It makes most gyms sound like a 1980s teen sex comedy with jocks bullying the weaker members, giving wedgies to anyone they perceive as a nerd. One way to avoid wedgies would be to not wear undergarments. They cannot be pulled into your natal cleft, that is the cleavage of your buttocks, for those of you not hip to medical lingo. Fun fact about the natal cleft, fellow radio show host Rush Limbaugh was given a deferment from being drafted into the Vietnam War because he had some sort of problem with his natal cleft. That is to say, the cleavage of the buttocks. Anyway, back to the wizard Mel. Oh god, this article goes on forever. So, Mel pretended to be a wizard and lost 47 pounds. Congratulations, Mel. I mean, what more could there be? Talked about Nerd Strong, talked about pretending to be a wizard and 47 pounds and wedgies and natal cleft. My goodness. Alright, predictably, winter vomiting disease outbreaks on the rise in California and apparently nowhere else. This by Abbott... Seriously? 2 silly names in a row. Abbott Dutton writes at sacramento.cbslocal.com, a disease commonly associated with cruise ships is spreading on land at an alarming rate. The neurovirus has a new name, winter vomiting disease, but Dr. Gil Chavez at the California Department of Public Health says it carries some nasty symptoms. You get vomiting, you get diarrhea, and you get abdominal cramps, he said. There have been 32 confirmed outbreaks statewide since October, including one in San Joaquin County, though none in the Sacramento Valley region. We know it's frequently common in the winter months, and there's different strains of the virus, sometimes that are more aggressive in one year than the next, so spreading the highly contagious disease doesn't take much, touching doorknobs, menus in restaurants, or utensils in food bars. I don't know what a food bar is. This FEMA Region 9 lingo is really throwing me off here. It's a food bar or a restaurant. That's what we'd call it in FEMA Region 7, but I trudge on. The good news is that it's easily preventable by washing your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap and water. Unlike the flu, there's no vaccine and no medicine to fight it. You simply have to wait it out. People think that if you had the flu shot, that'll prevent norovirus infection, and that is incorrect, he said. I'm guessing that Dr. Chavez, it doesn't really say. Also, the popular hand sanitizers aren't effective because they contain alcohol, so I guess that doesn't kill a norovirus. Symptoms usually begin 12 to 48 hours after exposure, at the food bar, I guess, and last 1 to 3 days. There you have it, winter vomiting disease in California, or as I like to call it, California vomiting disease. Uncredited at thehuffingtonpost.com. Foul play. Angry man leaves flock of chickens inside tax office. Police say an Oregon man, angry with his tax situation, left a flock of 7 chickens inside a state revenue office. Well, flock is kind of a grandiose term for 7 chickens. Police in Eugene said in a news release that they responded to a report Wednesday afternoon of chickens left in the lobby of the Oregon Department of Revenue. Police and an animal welfare officer rounded up the fowl, and they were taken to an animal shelter. Officers gave 66-year-old Lewis Adler of Creswell a trespass notice requiring him to stay away from the office or risk a citation. The Register Guard reports no animals or people, glad we got the order of precedence of importance correct, Adler couldn't immediately be reached for comment. State agency spokesman Derek Gasparini told the Guard the staff had prior dealings with Adler and he was frustrated by the outcome. I could really use a hot dog right now. Lee Moran at the Huffington Post writes the following. Vladimir Putin goes shirtless again for the new 2016 calendar. Vladimir Putin appears shirtless yet again in a bizarre new calendar that's titled All Year with the President of Russia. The Russian president fishes bare-chested in one of the snaps from the 2016 edition. Other images from the calendar posted online featured him working out, looking serious in military uniform, and signing autographs for children. Aww. But the political strongman also shows his sensitive side. There are photographs of him sniffing a flower and cuddling up to a dog. Dogs and I have warm feelings for one another, he's quoted as saying in the caption. Other words of wisdom include the menacing-sounding, no one will ever get military superiority over Russia, and the thankful, I like all Russian women. I think Russian women are the most talented and the most beautiful. Putin recently praised prospective Republican candidate Donald Trump, saying he was very talented, no doubt about that. Perhaps he sent him a copy. Well, that's editorializing, and I don't think that quote is actually in the calendar, so strike it from the record. Uncredited at the telegraph.co.uk, Thai King's favorite dog dies, days after man arrested for insulting her. Tong Deng was adopted as a stray puppy, but became a household name after starring in a book written by King Bhumibol Adulyadej. A monarch writing a book about a dog. Why don't they just make him the king of Vermont? And he looks very kingly. And also, I have to be careful because this is a country where insulting the king's dog gets you thrown into jail. So I won't say anything about the king's unroyal appearance in his pink shirt in his very cheap-looking wheelchair. If I weren't afraid of prosecution in Thailand, I would talk about those things. However, I will not. The favorite dog of Thailand's ailing monarch has died, days after a man was arrested under the kingdom's strict royal defamation laws for allegedly making a satirical online remark about the dog. The dog, called Tong Deng, which is Thai for copper, became a household name and a publishing sensation in Thailand after King Bhumibol Adulyadej adopted her as a stray puppy and wrote a heartfelt book about her attributes in 2002. She was praised for her loyalty and obedience, with the book widely interpreted at the time as a parable about how Thais should live and remember their place within the kingdom's rigid society. Her death was announced in a statement from the veterinary faculty of Kasetsart University late on Monday. While Tong Deng was sleeping and relaxing, she died peacefully on 26 December 2015 at 11:10 p.m. at Klai Kangwon Palace, the statement read. It added that she had been ill for the past few years and was just over 17 years old when she passed away. Kun is an honorific in Thailand, roughly translated to ma'am, and was frequently used by officials and local media when referring to the dog. She regularly featured in palace photographs, while the book about her outssold bestsellers such as Harry Potter in Thailand. A privately funded animated film based around Tongdang and her attributes is currently showing in Thai cinemas. King Bhumibol, aged 88, is the world's longest-serving monarch and is revered in Thailand, where his economic and social teachings are extensively promoted. The monarch is also shielded from any debate and criticism by one of the world's harshest royal defamation laws. Anyone convicted of insulting the revered but ailing king, or queen, heir, or regent can face up to 15 years in jail on each count. Prosecutions have soared since the army, which styles itself as the champion of the monarchy, grabbed power in a coup last year. The boundaries for what counts as a royal insult have also expanded dramatically. Earlier this month, Thanakorn Saripabun, aged 27, was arrested for allegedly making a satirical Facebook post about the king and his dog, according to his lawyers. As is often the case in lèse-majesté cases, the authorities did not give details on what the post said. Thanakorn also faces lèse-majesté, sedition, and computer crime charges for clicking like on a doctored photo of the king and sharing it, plus an infographic on a growing corruption scandal engulfing the military. King Bhumibol is revered among many Thais, but has been in hospital for much of the last 2 years and is rarely seen in public. Analysts say uncertainty as his reign enters its twilight years is a major factor in the political chaos that has beset Thailand for much of the last decade, as competing elites jostle for influence. Sticks and stones may break some bones. Pissing me off, man. You're pissing me off. You see, words do hurt, and in Thailand, they kill. But only if you are the king's beloved dog. Sleep easy, man. Lindsay Winkley at the San Diego Union Tribune, wouldn't want to leave out a word out of a newspaper's multi-worded name. Ms. Winkley writes, "Man stabbed by 400-pound bearded woman." A man was stabbed by a 400-pound bearded woman soon after asking a group of people for a cigarette in the East Village Wednesday night, police said. The 39-year-old man walked up to a group on Park Boulevard near K Street about 7:40 p.m., San Diego police officer Robert Himes said. After asking for a cigarette, a woman walked up to him, told him to get away from her things, and then stabbed him in the neck. The victim was taken to a hospital with an injury that was not life-threatening. The assailant ran, I think we're using more grandiose terminology here. The assailant ran, I did air quotations with my fingers, you couldn't see it though, heading south on Park. She was described as white and about 400 pounds with a beard. She was wearing a white shirt and jeans. Police found a 24-year-old woman of her description in the same area the next day, Himes said. He said she apparently returned to retrieve her belongings. She was jailed on suspicion of assault with a deadly weapon. Suzanne O'Halloran writes at foxbusiness.com a very deceptive headline, Richard Branson's Ding Dong investments ringing up great year. I thought this was an article about the Ding Dong Show, which is performed in Los Angeles by legendary comedian Don Barris. However, it's not, but I'll read it anyway. If billionaire Sir Richard Branson likes your idea enough to invest in your brand, well, you're probably onto something. I wonder if he invests in podcasts. In this case, it would be Ring, a souped-up version of the doorbell with remote video capabilities. Branson, along with other investors, helped Ring raise $28 million in private funding last August. In a December interview with FoxBusiness.com, founder Jamie Siminoff said his main goal is now to build the brand. We're pretty focused on the business with 99% maintaining growth and operations, Siminoff noted. That sales have jumped 1,330% this year, but declined to disclose actual revenue numbers. In early January, Ring will release even more details on its financials. And it goes on from there, but does not mention the Ding Dong Show, which leads me to my next article by CrimeSider staff at CBSNews.com. Teen shot by homeowner may have been ding dong ditching. Pryor, Oklahoma. A northeast Oklahoma teen who was shot by a homeowner New Year's Day may have been playing a neighborhood prank known as ding dong ditching, police say. The 14-year-old boy was seriously hurt about 1:30 a.m. Friday in Pryor when he was shot on the homeowner's property, reports CBS affiliate KWTV. Officers from the Pryor Police Department reportedly responded to a 911 call reporting a home invasion, but say it doesn't appear that the youth was attempting to break into the home. Instead, they say he may have been ding-dong ditching, with 2 other teens, or ringing doorbells and running away. They explained what ding-dong ditching was to you there, ringing a doorbell and running away. They say 3 teens were trespassing on the homeowner's property when the man fired several shots. The Mays County District Attorney will determine whether the shooting was lawful or illegal, reports the station. Police aren't identifying the shooter because he hasn't been arrested. The boy's mother told KWTV reporter Allison Harris that the boy was struck by a bullet in his arm and another bullet pierced his liver. The boy underwent surgery at a Tulsa hospital and is recovering. Well, when you play with fire, you may get burned. As a youth myself, we played Ding Dong Ditch pretty consistently over the years. Our mistake, or perhaps our crowning achievement, was going around the same time on the same day of the week, and after seeing some of the reactions, going back again and again to these same houses. And we found it to be hilarious, albeit dangerous. We were chased, we had wrenches and screwdrivers thrown at us, we had beer bottles thrown at us. However, we all live today, and we are all contributing to society in our own way. Some are working and paying taxes, and then, actually all of them except me. And then there's me, Tugboat Calhoun, podcasting. It started out sophisticated and very competitive. You had 3 different categories of points, adding up to a total of 10. The 3 categories were how far the home was away from the road, what the lighting situation was, and what sort of vehicles were in the driveway. So you got 1 through 3 points for each of those categories, and then there was 1 point for style if you stayed to do a dance in the yard when the owner opened the door. You did something like humping a lawn gnome, kissing a flamingo in the yard. Things like that would get you that additional style point. Very, very subjective, very highly contentious subject. However, if the house was far from the road, you had to do a long bit of running, a lot of open territory to get caught in, then that was worth the full 3 points. If there were a lot of lights, or if a floodlight came on as you were nearing the house, which happens frequently, more points. And then, and I know that terms such as hillbilly and redneck will violate the rules of any safe space, so I won't say them. However, the more rural the vehicles in the yard looked, for example, broken down pickup trucks, the assumption was the more likely you were to, as this boy was, get shot. So if you had the minivan in the driveway, okay, that's 1 point. If you have 3 or 4 rusted out, broken down pickup trucks, okay, you get the 3 points, and you gotta be real ballsy to stick around for that style point. Okay, moving on. At the smokinggun.com, an uncredited article reads, Woman beat husband over flatulence. Angered by her husband's repeated farting in bed, a Florida woman allegedly elbowed, kicked, and scratched her spouse, according to police who arrested her for battery. Dawn Meekley, age 55, is facing a charge following a 3:20 a.m. confrontation in the Port St. Lucie home she shares with her husband Donald. As detailed in an arrest affidavit, Donald told the cops while he was laying in bed, he passed gas, which prompted Don to begin elbowing him on his arm. When Donald's flatulence continued, Don began kicking him and eventually kicked him out of their bed. Donald said he eventually returned to the bed where he passed gas again. Not surprisingly, Don began elbowing and kicking him again. Donald said that he subsequently sought to restrain his wife, who repeatedly scratched him across his chest. Cops reported that Donald had 4 or 5 6-inch scratches on his chest, and his t-shirt was ripped in 3 places. During police questioning, Dawn said she had asked Donald several times to stop passing gas in their bed. But when his flatulence persisted, Dawn admitted she began elbowing and kicking him. Dawn suffered a bloody lip in the fracas, but told police that Donald was restraining me and somehow my lip got split open. Dawn also told cops that while she was in the bathroom calling 911, she sprayed pepper spray in the air to keep Donald out of the restroom. And lastly, another uncredited story at thesmokinggun.com. Mysterious glory hole driller strikes again. Florida police are on the lookout for a persistent glory hole driller. A municipal employee contacted police Friday morning to report that a criminal mischief had occurred inside the men's bathroom at the Treasure Shores Beach in Vero Beach. Specifically, worker Brad Dewson reported discovering a circular hole drilled into the divider wall separating the urinals from the toilets. Dewson told police that he previously patched up a similar hole. Based on the location of where the hole was drilled, it is commonly used for male subjects to place their genitalia through. What? A sheriff's deputy noted. A police report which does not describe the size of the most recent hole notes that investigators have no information on the mysterious driller. As a result, the case, but not the bathroom itself, is listed as inactive.
Wondering what Tugboat and these Illuminati bodies are up to? Find out in this segment, Voice of the Tugverse, here on The Voice of Reason, with Tugboat Calhoun.
Michael McLaughlin, a reporter at the Huffington Post, writes, "Rare sighting of giant squid in Japanese Bay." Well, that's the title, which he likely wrote, but the article reads as follows. A giant squid that strayed from its normal habitat set onlookers abuzz when it swam near boats in a Japanese harbor. Video shows the elusive sea creature, believed to be a juvenile that hasn't reached full size, spent several hours close to the surface of Toyama Bay along the country's west coast on Christmas Eve. Ah, Christmas squid. I suppose this is Japan's version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That was my editorializing, by the way. Back to the story. This particular bright red and white squid, captured in the above footage, which you can't see, was 12.1 feet long, whereas female adults, which are larger than males, reach roughly 40 feet. That's 40 feet, a 40-foot squid. It's extremely rare to spot the deep-sea creature, also known by its scientific name of Architeuthis. It says also known by its scientific name, however, it doesn't actually tell us what its non-scientific name is aside from red and white squid. Okie doke, back to the story. They, the Architeuthi, normally prowl waters at least 100 feet below the ocean surface. It's unclear why this particular animal journeyed into the bay. Though they've been the subject of lore for centuries, it was only in 2004 that scientists captured the first image of a giant squid in its natural habitat. It's more common to find the carcass of the animal washed ashore. Sitting on the dock of the bay. Owen Jarvis at livescience.com reports, Witchcraft Island reveals evidence of Stone Age rituals. A Stone Age site where cave rituals may have been performed some 9,000 years ago has been discovered on Blodjungfrun, an island off the east coast of Sweden. The island has long been associated with tales of witchcraft, curses, and supernatural powers. Oh, a little like Calhoun Holler. Blodjungfrun's huge boulders and steep cliffs provide a dramatic landscape, and for centuries the uninhabited island has been associated with supernatural powers, wrote a team of archaeologists in the summary of a presentation given recently at the European Association of Archaeologists annual meeting in Glasgow, Scotland, which is not independent from the United Kingdom. According to a centuries-old legend, witches gather every Easter on the island to worship the devil himself. Curses have also been associated with the island. For instance, those who remove a rock from the site are said to endure a lifetime of bad luck. Gonna get on ancestry.com and see if any Calhouns have ever been to that island, and if rock curses transcend through the generations. Anyway, back to the story. The team began archaeological fieldwork on the island in the spring of 2014. The results are astonishing and reveal extensive human activities on the island since the Mesolithic Stone Age, the archaeologists wrote. People who traveled to the island may have practiced various rituals inside the two caves, archaeologists say. One cave contains what may be an altar where offerings could have been made to deities. Meanwhile, another cave has an area that could have been used as a theater or stage. In two caves, distinct ritual features were identified, wrote team members who hail from Kalmar County Museum and Linnaeus University, both in Sweden. One cave has a massive hollow, about 2.3 feet in diameter, which was hammered into a vertical wall. A fireplace lies underneath the hollow. We believe the hollow is man-made and the fireplace is being used in connection to hammering out the hollow, probably on several occasions, said Ludvig Papmal Dufay, an archaeologist with the Kalmar County Museum. The second cave yielded more strange clues. Archaeologists found a hammerstone in an area that was used for grinding up material. This area could have been used to place something in, perhaps as some form of an offering, like an altar, Pep Mel Dufay said. Wow, a fireplace in a cave, that is really weird. In between the two caves, the archaeologists discovered a small rock shelter, just 20 by 26 feet, that contains stone tools and seal remains. The always reliable radiocarbon dating indicates people consumed the seals around 9,000 years ago. And it goes on from there, telling more about people having campfires and eating seals, which, as you know, are entirely and uniquely and completely related to witchcraft and supernatural occult practices, because why else would you light a fire in a cave and eat seal meat, unless you're into some pretty dark stuff. So, good job, Swedish archaeologists. Alright, well that's all the stories that we have for today's broadcast. I don't know how you're listening, however, you can find other ways to listen by listening to what I'm about to tell you. You can go to our Facebook page, which has links to the programs. However, you can also go to our Podbean page, which hosts our RSS feed, so you can subscribe to that. iTunes is how a lot of people get the show. You can go to TuneIn, which is a streaming application for your phone. You can also go to Stitcher or Blueberry to find our program. We are going to be converting sometime next month into an actual internet radio show. So I'll be an internet radio personality versus just a podcaster. You can also find me on JDate and farmersonly.com. I can't put any podcasts on there. I'm not sure what the deal is, but I thought they were entertainment mediums. I suppose not. I'm having a lot of roadblocks there. I'm on Google+. I'm trying to figure out Instagram, but I've got a flip phone, so that's all the government gives out these days. You figure you line up for a free phone, and it's a flip phone. What am I going to do with this? I can't even get on Instagram, so maybe Miss Sophia will let me borrow her phone, but we'll see. She's mad at me right now. Okay, so thanks for listening, Tuggernauts. Remember to always wipe front to back. I'm Tugboat Calhoun, and nobody loves you like I do.